Most students don't fail because they're lazy or unintelligent. They fail because they're studying the wrong way, and no one ever taught them a better way. In fact, many students unknowingly waste up to 80% of their study time. They sit for long hours reading notes, highlighting pages, and cramming information into their heads, believing that effort alone guarantees success. But after the exam is over, most of that information disappears. If you ever stayed up all night studying, walked into the exam feeling confident, passed the test, and then realized days later that you couldn't explain what you studied, this is exactly why it happens. Think of your brain like a bucket. If the bucket has holes, no matter how much water you pour in, most of it leaks out. The problem isn't the water. The problem is the bucket. That's exactly what happens when you use ineffective study methods. You're putting in time and effort, but the information isn't staying in your memory. It leaks out almost immediately. Let's start with the first major mistake: highlighting and rereading. This is one of the most common study habits in the world. Students reread the same notes again and again, underline important sentences, and highlight entire pages in bright colors. It feels productive because you're busy. But being busy is not the same as learning. Familiarity tricks your brain. When you reread, your brain recognizes the words, so it feels easy. And because it feels easy, you assume you're learning. But learning doesn't happen when things feel easy. It happens when your brain is challenged. It's like watching the same movie over and over and believing you've mastered filmmaking. You may know every scene, but you haven't learned how to write, direct, or edit a movie. Without mental effort, your brain has no reason to store the information long-term. The second big mistake is last-minute cramming. Cramming can help you remember things briefly, especially if your only goal is to survive the exam. But your brain treats crammed information like junk mail. It keeps it just long enough to be useful, then throws it away. That's why many students forget everything shortly after the exam. Meanwhile, students who study gradually and revisit information over time don't just pass tests. They actually understand what they're learning. And that understanding gives them an advantage that lasts far beyond school. The third mistake is passive studying. Passive studying means reading, watching, or listening without interacting with the material. No questioning, no testing, no explaining. Imagine trying to learn how to swim by watching videos without ever entering the water. You might understand the theory, but you won't develop the skill. Learning works the same way. Your brain learns best when it is actively involved. Real learning requires action. Here's the most important principle you need to understand. Studying is not about how long you study. It's about how much you remember. Some students study for fewer hours but retain far more information. Others study for long hours and remember almost nothing. The difference is not intelligence. It's method. Learning research consistently shows the same pattern. Reading alone leads to very low retention. Listening and watching are slightly better, but still weak. Practicing what you learn dramatically improves memory. And teaching others leads to the highest retention of all, because it forces your brain to organize ideas, retrieve information, and explain it clearly. So how do you study actively? The first powerful method is active recall. Instead of rereading notes, you challenge yourself to pull information out of your memory. This struggle is not a problem. It's the point. Every time you retrieve information, your brain strengthens that memory. One effective active recall method is the Feynman Technique. You take a concept and explain it in very simple words, as if you were teaching a child. If you struggle to explain it clearly, that's not failure. That's progress. You've identified a gap in your understanding, and filling that gap is how real learning happens. Another powerful method is self-testing. Top students don't spend most of their time rereading notes. They quiz themselves. They use flashcards, practice questions, and pass exams. Research consistently shows that students who test themselves perform far better than those who only review notes. The second key strategy is spaced repetition. Your brain naturally forgets information over time. This is normal. In fact, a large portion of new information can be lost within hours if it's not reviewed. Cramming ignores this reality. Spaced repetition works with it. Instead of studying everything in one long session, you spread short reviews over time. For example, you learn material on day 1, do a quick review a few days later, and then test yourself again after a week. These short, spaced reviews require less effort and create much stronger memory. The final step is building a daily study habit. Even the best study techniques won't work if you only use them once in a while. Consistency is what turns good methods into real results. One simple habit-building trick is the 2-minute rule. Commit to studying for just 2 minutes. Starting is often the hardest part. Once you begin, it's much easier to continue. Another effective strategy is habit stacking. Attach studying to something you already do every day, like reviewing one flashcard after brushing your teeth. This removes the need for motivation and makes studying automatic. You can also use the Pomodoro technique. Study for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. This keeps your mind focused, reduces fatigue, and helps you avoid burnout. Here's the truth most students need to hear. You don't need more time. You need better methods. Small, consistent, active study sessions will always beat last-minute cramming. And if you apply even one of these techniques, your learning won't just improve temporarily. It will improve permanently. If you found this helpful, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who's still studying the hard way. Study smarter, not longer,